Hello friends, the poem Adam's Curse belongs to the Irish poet William Butler Yeats' collection In the Seven Woods. The poem has a strong autobiographical element in it because it reflects the poet's personal experiences with two women. One of these two women was Yeats's beloved Maud Gonne, who was an exceptionally beautiful woman but never reciprocated the poet's love. The other lady described in this poem as a beautiful, mild woman is Maud Gonne's sister Kathleen. However, in this poem, Yeats mentions a friend of his lady love and not a sister. The poem explores the themes of writing, hard work, and time. The poem Adam's Curse appears to be the poet's expression of the rejection of love that he had to face from Maud Gonne. The poem tries to convey the message that poetry and true love are missing from this world. Adam's Curse was published in 1904. It has AABBCC rhyme scheme. We sat together at one summer's end. So, the poet is remembering a past time when he had sat together with two other women. One of those women was the friend of the poet's beloved, and the other was the beloved herself. We sat together one summer's end. At the end of the summer season, we had sat together. That beautiful, mild woman, that is the friend of the poet's beloved, your close friend, and you and I, the poet is addressing his beloved now, and he says that you and I and that woman, we talked of poetry, we discussed poetry, which is a subject which was close to us. I said, a line will take us hours maybe, if it does not seem a moment's thought. Our stitching and unstitching has been naught. I said, at that time, during that discussion, during that conversation, I had observed, I had reflected, I had stated that a poetic line, a line in a stanza, will take us hours maybe, it will take us hours to compose that line. Yet, if it does not seem a moment's thought, yet when the line is finally out, it should look natural and spontaneous. It should look so clear and natural that by looking at it, by reading it, one should not imagine that it had taken the poet almost an hour or more than an hour to compose it. Our stitching and unstitching has been naught. And if the line looks labored, if the line appears as though it has been reflected, it has taken a lot of time for the poet to think about it, then our stitching, our creating, our writing and unstitching and then cutting it off and then rewriting that line has been naught. It would be useless. It would be a futile exercise. In other words, the poet means to say that when a poet composes poetry, his line should appear clear and natural and spontaneous, even if it had taken that poet hours and hours to think and structure that line. Better go down upon your marrow bones and scrub a kitchen pavement or break stones. Now the poet says that instead of composing poems, it is far more fruitful to do some kind of physical labor. Instead of composing poems which requires a mental exercise, it would be fruitful to do physical work like going down upon your marrow bones. That means going down on your bones and working so hard that you reach the marrow of your bones. Even the marrow of the bones get affected because of all that hard work. And scrub a kitchen pavement. That means scrub a kitchen floor or break stones or do some other hard physical work like breaking stones, like an old pauper, that is like a person who is a beggar, or who is a penniless person. He does all this kind of work in order to earn a living in all kinds of weather, and do this kind of, and it is more fruitful to do this kind of physical work in all kinds of weather. For to articulate sweet sounds together is to work hard than all these. So he says, because it is to express sweet sounds through poetry is much harder work, and yet be taught an idler by the noisy set of bankers, schoolmasters, and clergymen the martyrs call the world. Now, the poet seems to have a negative opinion of bankers, schoolmasters, and clergymen. He feels that they are noisy people who express a lot of opinions, and some of those opinions, or maybe most of those opinions, are actually not true. So, be taught, but these are the people, the bankers, schoolmasters, and clergymen, who think of poets as idlers, because these people compare their work to and they feel that their work, which requires physical exercise, is much better and of much superior quality than the work of poets, because they don't require physical activity. They just engage with their words. So, and that is why they think that these category of people, poets, are idle people, that they have no other work, and that is why they spend time composing poetry. So, of bankers, schoolmasters, and clergymen, the martyrs call the world, and the martyrs call the world, and the martyrs are the people who actually lose their identity because of being obsessed with love. The love that they have for women never gets responded, or gets responded in a very little way, or not in a suitable way, and these are the people who actually end up getting wiped away from their world, because although they love and express their love through their poems, they never get any response. And thereupon that beautiful mild woman, for whose sake there's many a one shall find out all heartache. Now, at that moment, when the poet has expressed his opinion on poetry, that mild woman, that is the poet's beloved's friend, she had been listening to what the poet had been saying, and she gives her response. And thereupon, that beautiful mild woman, for whose sake there's many a one shall find out all heartache. Now, there may be many, this woman, since she is beautiful and soft and gentle in nature, obviously she will be attracting a lot of attention. Many a men would fall in love with her, but their heart would be broken. She will be turning down their advances. There's many a one shall find out all heartache, and these men will suffer heartburn, because she will not be responding to their love. Now, this woman, on finding that her voice is sweet and low, replied, now, when will these men shower their love and affection on this beautiful mild woman? When they get attracted to her physical appearance, to her looks, and when they hear her sweet voice, her low voice, gentle and soft, and then they would also suffer heartache, because she would not be responding to their love. Now, this mild woman, she replied, to be born woman is to know, although they do not talk of it at school, that we must labor to be beautiful. Now, she says that just as writing poetry is hard, staying beautiful is equally hard. That is, when a woman is born, she has to work all her life, she has to labor all her life to look beautiful and appealing in front of others. Looks do not come naturally. One has to work a lot to maintain those good looks. This is the reply that this beautiful mild woman, who is sitting with the other two people, she says, the friend of the poet's beloved. The poet's beloved is, of course, Maud Gonne, and here we are talking about, in real life actually, the conversation was amongst Maud Gonne and then Kathleen, her sister, and Yeats. But here the sister is not mentioned. She is described as a beautiful friend. I said, it's certain there's no fine thing since Adam's fall, but needs much laboring. Now, the reply that the poet gave to the friend's words is that I said it's certain there's no fine thing, there is nothing as fine since there's no fine thing since Adam's fall, but needs much laboring. Since the fall of Adam, when since the time when Adam was cursed by God, and and God cursed him and said that from now on nothing will be available for free to you. For everything that Adam and Eve would want, they would have to work hard. That was the curse that God had given to Adam and Eve. So since that time of that great fall, everything has been everything that has been seen in this world has come out of labor. There have been lovers who thought love should be so much compounded of high courtesy. In the past, there have been lovers who thought that love is something that should be expressed through noble poetic expressions, that they would sigh and quote with learned looks precedents out of beautiful books. And in order to express their feelings of love, they would refer to beautiful learned books and would quote those words, and in that way they would try to win the affection of their lady love. Yet now it seems an idle trade enough. However, now everything seems meaningless. However much a poet would write poetry, however much he composes verse, it would not attract the attention of the person whom he is trying to woo. We sat grown quiet at the name of love, and now when they started talking of love, they became quieter and started reflecting more on the nature of love. We saw the last embers of daylight die, and it was the time of sunset, and we saw the last glow of the daylight. We saw it sinking. We saw the sun setting, and in the trembling blue-green of the sky, and from a distance as the sky appeared blue and green in color, a moon worn as if it had been a shell. We also saw a moon appearing in the sky, but the moon also looked faded, worn out, as though it has become exhausted. A moon worn as if it had been a shell, washed by time's waters as they rose and fell. The moon appeared as though it was washed by the waters of time, and as a result it had become smooth and worn out. About washed by time's waters as they rose and fell, about the stars and broke in days and years. And the poet also says that from a distance the moon looked as though it had been washed by the waters of time as the waters rose and fell in the ocean. Similarly, the moon appeared to be rising and falling about the stars, and in this way, with the gradual passing of time, we have had days and months and years, and time gradually slipped by. I had a thought for no one's but your ears, that you were beautiful and that I strove to love you in the old highway of love, that it had all seemed happy, and yet we had grown as weary hearted as that hollow moon. Now the poet says that I had a thought for no one's but your ears. My personal feelings were for only you and not for anybody else. That you were beautiful, that there was a point when you were beautiful, and because of your beauty I had fallen in love with you, and that I strove to love you in the old highway of love. And I had composed a number of verses dedicating them to you, thinking that when you would read them, you would become aware, you would become conscious of how much I had loved you because of your beauty, that it had all seemed happy, and at first it had looked as though my love was promising, and that it would be responded, and that you would reciprocate my love. and yet we had grown as very hurted as that hollow moon. But just as the moon appears hollow and faded and exhausted from a distance, today we too have become very hurted. We too have a kind of distance seems to have grown between us, and we seem to have become exhausted of the very word. We seem to have become very tired of the very word called love, because we do not seem to have that kind of connectivity that we should have had as lovers. And with these words, I come to the end of my explanation of this deeply reflective poem. Thanks for visiting the channel, and until the next time we meet again, bye.